Welcome to the full experience, a Cordkillers production, where we get the flavor of an entire television series by watching 4 episodes. The first, the ultimate, the lowest, and the last. This week, week 2 of our watch of The Wire, we are watching the highest rated episode on IMDb, the ultimate episode, season 3, episode 11, Middle Ground, first aired December 12th, 2004. It was the penultimate episode in season 3. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood.
Yeah, dude. We may have to pull in. Amos, did you happen to watch this one?
Of course.
Of course.
Okay. So, and you had or had not watched The Wire before? I know you told us, but
I had watched the whole season last summer.
Okay. So I guess all of us have a bit of a skewed experience with this. I got to tell you guys, I got to confess that after seeing the first episode, I may have gotten almost all the way through season 1.
After falling off the Wire wagon and getting a little taste.
I'm like Bubble.
You had to go back to them red tops.
WMDs. But that skewed me a little bit because after watching almost all of season 1 to jump 2 seasons ahead, it was really remarkable to notice how many echoes in season 3, episode 11. The exact same things are happening. There's an info dump on, a tutorial on how this new form of communication works and how they can intercept stuff. There's an authority figure. The themes of, but we don't want to work. It was almost word for word. And it's only because I leapt all the way forward that it was so transparent to see.
Well, and I did not continue watching, even though I was tempted to. And I went straight from episode 1, season 1, to season 3, episode 11. And I had the same experience where I'm like, wow, this is very connected to what we just watched. Here's the FBI guy again. It's the group that came together in season 1 to wiretap Avon Barksdale is getting Avon Barksdale, right? Like it's like the bookend episode to that. And that's not how we pick it. We picked season 1, episode 1, because it's the first. We picked this one because it's the highest rated. Do you agree that this feels like the best episode of The Wire?
Well, the only way to know for sure is for me to watch all of The Wire,
right,
which I will gladly
which you've
do
done, but not recently. Yeah. Okay.
But to be honest, this one read to me like it is highly rated because it was a payoff of long-running themes. To be honest, seeing it just by itself, it was fairly cartoonish with everything with Bowtie Man and Omar. The opening scene, quite frankly, is ridiculous, where Omar is whistling his own theme song, which he only did like once here and again in season 1, but he takes 3 laps through his own theme song as he walks down the street.
The farmer in the dell.
Yeah.
Or the cheese stands alone as he.
Here's a click, turns around, somebody has the drop on him, does this ridiculously slow pulling out of his gun and aims it. The guy sets down his gun. I was like, what is this even? Why are you even doing this if you just want to have a conversation?
You say silly. I say compelling. I was like, oh, this open is iconic. This is cowboys. These are people who have spines, who know what to do. I found it the opposite of comic. That's so interesting.
I found it, compared to the grit of season 1, I found it cartoonish and cheesy. And in fact, I got a little bit upset seeing Stringer Bell get killed in a cartoonish and cheesy by cartoon characters by the end. And again, maybe it's just because I'm seeing Omar with so much depth in season 1 right now, and he's represented as a stick man, as a one-dimensional figure in this episode.
I disagree that he's represented as a stick man or a one-dimensional figure. However, I'm probably basing that on what I already know about him, not what we see in this episode. I suffice to say, I don't think I've certainly never been in a face-off with guns like that. Brian, have you?
Well, no, okay, all right.
No, I'm not trying to throw shade. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. I just didn't know if you or Amos, either one, had.
It was just that one time in
So Suffice to say that none of us have been in that situation, but and so we're all kind of pasting our own interpretations of whether it's silly or not. I'm probably overdoing it when I think it's so compelling, but I was like, this is a battle of wits showing that the gun is not the ultimate arbiter. It's the brain.
And the Epcot tour of the world of the libertarian future with warts and all.
Okay, let me explain. Let me see if this one held up for you or not, because I looked at what the mayor is doing and the police pressure of like, just let us go in and bust this. Like, come on, it's over. It's about to get blown. The reporters are going to come, the conniving and all of that. And the mayor still saying, but it works. And us getting Carcetti's like tour where the chief is showing him like, yeah, the crime is down not because we let them do it. It's because we moved them here and we don't have to spend time on BS crimes. We can actually fight the real crimes. It's not the crime fell. It's that we allocated our resources to fighting the real crime. I thought that was a very compelling and nuanced way of describing the Amsterdam situation, which I kind of forgot they did. But is that how you saw it?
Oh, absolutely. And on top of that, I like the fact that they were able, like, that was a good info dump where they're covering broad social structures. And they did it without making it cartoonish, because the mayor showed a level of self-awareness and nuance where like, yes, he's attracted to the idea of a 14% reduction in crime, but also he's self-aware enough to say to everybody, look, if there's a way to keep doing this, but not call it what it is, like,
let's figure it out.
I think that was a very important insulating layer that kept me in the story. Like, he knows how ridiculous this is, but he also knows that it's results,
Yeah. He's like, but a 14% crime drop, that's going to make me look good. And maybe with that can outweigh the blowback if we can figure this out. As we know, they don't figure it out in the next episode.
Yeah. Amos, what was your impression?
I surprisingly, I saw this as like the pivot point. This was the point at which Belle's story finishes. It's been kind of on and off about him for a while. It's when Omar's story really comes to fruition, and I really started enjoying his character, and it became like, for me, the story of The Wire became about Omar for so long after this episode. This is like the waking up of Omar for me. And it kind of seems like from my memory, now we are roughly halfway through the series, from my memory, this is when my interest peaked. And from this point on, it became resolutions and everything started falling into place. And the characters that I really enjoyed, other than McNulty, really started to shine from here on out, because I thought McNulty shined in the first episode or the first season. So this is diving back into, this is why I love this show so much. And it led into, like, now I watched the first episode and I was like, yeah, I could watch the rest of the season. Okay. I watched this one. I was like, immediately, I want to watch more of this. This is where I was at in The Wire when I was just like, I cannot turn
when you were
off.
eating it up. Yeah. And we forgot, we were talking about the connections between episode 1 and this episode. The judge that was in episode 1 that McNulty tipped off showed back up and was like, isn't this your guy? Isn't that,
Judge Phelan? Yeah. And in fact, it's a plot point in season 1 that he filled out somebody else's term, and so he was up for re-election. So it was a question in season 1 whether or not he would get reelected. So I got to jump forward and be like, oh, okay, yeah, he does.
I guess he got reelected. Yeah. Nice little bit. There's lots of these kinds of examples, but one that I noted was you see Bubs selling the shirts,
the whiteys.
Yeah. And you see Wallace saying like, you should expand to some hoodies. It's getting cold. And then the next scene is the two junkies inside, and you hear Bubs. He's just natural sound outside.
One of those two junkies is the kid that he was training up in episode 1. And he has a tragic arc in season 1, and you actually, again, this is reminiscent of the first episode. He's still getting trained up in the way of being a junkie,
right, by a different guy now. But the sounds get, like, you could have just had random sounds outside and that scene would have been fine, but hearing Bubs yelling about shirts like adds depth to that scene that you might not even consciously notice, but really helps. I have always felt that the shooting of Stringer was a little sudden and unconvincing.
Well, it's also truly tragic because again, watching season 1, they slow roll the fact that that Stringer Bell wants desperately to become a legitimate businessman and is bettering himself at the community college, learning, taking Econ 101 and learning about elastic versus inelastic demands. And you see him hammer on all of his thugs to actually run the print shop like a real business because they didn't want it to be a BS front. And you get that sense of foreboding when Avon and Stringer are having this remember when talk, and it just reeks of like, oh dear.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm with you, Brian. I would have to rewatch all of them again to say for sure whether what the best episode would be in my opinion. But I think more than you, I would keep this a candidate. I thought it was pretty tight. The weakest part for me was the Cuddy stuff, but I know that's part of a much longer storyline that we're just kind of getting groundwork for.
I loved the Cuddy stuff specifically because just that one moment where he goes and asks for help
10,000.
from Avon, and like they have done such a good job slowly numbing us to how much money 10, 20, 30, $40,000 is, that when he says $10,000, it's almost like we the viewers snort laughter, like what? And then but meanwhile then you pause, and as a human being I'm like, no, $10,000 is a lot of money, Brian. and then it's like, oh, but we see it from Avon's point of view because we see him drop so much money. He dropped $100,000 on that basketball game as a bet.
Right. And he's like, give him 15. Kick the kid a favor. Yeah.
Yep.
Any other thoughts on season 3, episode 11, Middle Ground?
I don't want to eat the poop of saying that it was bad or whatever. It just was
to borrow another Wire metaphor.
It was. I was just surprised at how over the top that opening Western scene was.
Yeah. Amos.
The boxing scene where he invites the kids from the other neighborhood to come in because his kids have like this inflated sense of ego because they're doing well with each other. Mm-hmm. And then they bring in another group, and it kind of leads into some of the struggles that the different parts of the cast, different groups, different memberships will have throughout season 4 and 5 as it comes to fruition, how the outside forces are different than what you're expecting.
Yeah.
And I thought that was fun. And just that storyline itself, I always had hope for that. I always thought that was going to work out.
Yeah. I loved the casting of the kid who kicked their butts. Like they cast a wire coat hanger as an actor, and the wire coat hanger just
didn't stop. Just does not stop. Yeah. The first couple rounds, it's like, okay, well, I'm still going. But by the time the third round ended, the end of the fight, he pulls out his mouthpiece, and finally it's just bloodied up. He's like, he went into the third round thinking, yeah, I got this. He's getting tired, and he leaves. He's bloody. Now he's not spitting out water. He's spitting out blood, and it's like, yeah, that's keep that ego going there, boy.
Well, that is Middle Ground. Next time, the lowest rated Wire episode. So we approach it from the other end, and we go back to season 2. Quirk of the format here, because we always do the lowest before the last. Season 2, episode 1, Ebb Tide. So we're getting the premiere of the second season, which, Brian, you've put forth this theory, and I think it's probably going to prove true, is that people ranked this lower because it was the first episode of the second season. And people didn't really understand where the Wire was going to be as a whole. I wonder if that'll help us.
Yeah, I'll bet it's pretty good if you already trust the show and you're not scared that it's going to be bad. My guess is after you finally fall in love with it, you're like, where are all my favorite things?
Yeah. That is coming next on The Full Experience. We are 3/4 way through The Wire. So we need your suggestions for what the next watch will be. Send those to cordkillers@gmail.com. We will watch that lowest ranked episode 201 Ebb Tide next and talk about it on the next episode of The Full Experience. See you then.